All right, I think we are live. Hello, good evening, everyone. Happy Thursday to you. Coming to you live here with the coach, Kevin Schroeder. I am Henry John. This is your Week 9 Flurry Sports Fantasy Football Start Sit Show. So I'm just going to say it right out of the gates here. Drop those start sit questions you have in the chat. If you got anything for Thursday Night Football or the weekend looking ahead, we will get to all of it. We'll answer as much as we can here. Probably be hanging out for about an hour or so. We'll go a little after kickoff of the game, I'd say, tonight. Coach, how are you doing this week? I said in one of my articles I wrote today, like, there's no real halfway point in the NFL season now with the 17th game, and it like bothers my OCD. But I mean, I guess we're sort of halfway now, right? I don't know. How are you holding up? How are those teams looking? Are we ready for Week 9?
Well, I would say this is the halfway point, assuming that we're all going to make the our Super Bowl. So that most
Right.
leagues had that last week off. So I'm playing for the championship in all my leagues. So sitting good. All 5 of my leagues, I'm above 500, and some leagues I'm kind of stretching the depth a little bit. Lost Derrick Henry. That's sad to see him go down. Calvin Ridley stepping away. That's sad to see. Not sure what the timeline is for when he's ready to go again, but we lost some pretty big names this past week, and they're going to be tough to replace.
Yeah, that we did. And it's kind of a weird time right now. I think in fantasy football, a lot of, I think owners want to trade, want to make improvements, but there are a lot of guys who it's tough to get a read on the value and where they stand right now. I told Luke we were talking about a trade in a league last night. We were just going back and forth via text, and I told him writing the buy low sell high article over at flurrysports.org was like pulling teeth this week because like where do you land on some of these guys? And I think where one person may come in and say, okay, he's kind of a buy low candidate. Somebody else might be like, yeah, I'm not so sure that I want him around. Just when we look at some of these injuries, I know different people, different opinions on how to handle the Titans' backfield situation going forward. Zach and I were talking a lot about that on the show Tuesday. So I guess we can start there. Do you have any specific lean, since we're focusing on Week 9 start sit for this week? The Titans, of course, going against the Rams, so it's a tough matchup, particularly for, I would say, between the tackles running against that Rams defense. When you got a guy like Aaron Donald clog in the middle, what are your thoughts on the backfield this week? And then maybe like a little insight, if you have any, or have a lean as to long term there in Tennessee, because that I think is one of the big fantasy storylines here of the week and moving forward.
Yeah, so actually, a little spoiler alert, but it is referenced in the Start Sit article. I would recommend, if you can avoid it, not starting any of the Titans running backs till we kind of see how it shakes down. If I absolutely had to start one of them, it would probably be McNichols this week, just because he's kind of the incumbent, and I could see Titans are going to have to pass. He'll probably get some a little PPR action there. Long term, I do think Adrian Peterson probably is going to be the most likely to be the Derrick Henry light version. I think you'll see him getting, he can take his 15, 20 carries a game. I think not. He's certainly not to the level of Derrick Henry at age 36, but he is still a bell cow guy. And so I did in a couple leagues where I had some fab budget and I needed a running back. I did spend a little fab on Adrian Peterson, as much as $21 out of $100 in one league. And that was a shot I was willing to take, just because rest of the way he's got a pretty decent schedule down the stretch run. And so I thought he would be long term. I think that's who the buy is in that backfield, but curious to know your thoughts on that too, as far as where you're leaning there.
Yeah, it's kind of a similar situation and similar outlook. I would say with you, talking about it with Zach, we agreed pretty much hand in hand on Tuesday night. McNichols initially, especially looking at the Titans' next two matchups being the Rams, and then I want to say it was the Saints after that, right? So Two tough defenses there all around, but particularly against the run. Not sure how much AP is going to be able to muster up in those two matchups. So, from a just simply a game flow and a matchup standpoint, I think McNichols as the pass catching back is the way to go out of the gates. But long term, right with you and echoing your thoughts, Tennessee's not going to completely reinvent themselves here offensively. You simply can't do that and expect to be successful in the middle of the season. So I think Peterson steps in, and he is more of the Derrick Henry-esque back of the two for sure. So a similar, I guess I would say, outlook to what you had. You did mention the kind of tease the running back start sit article. All of Coach's Week 9 start sit articles are up over at flurrysports.org, so be sure to check those out, along with all the other great fantasy, you got streamers content, NFL content, all kinds of stuff being pumped out here this week. Like always, Coach, you did tease, though. You have McNichols and really all Titans running backs, as you listed here in the article. They are sits this week against the Rams. Anything else you wanted to add to that? I mean, I think the matchup kind of speaks for itself. Give me kind of a range, I guess I would say. What might be a running back or two that you would play over McNichols in this matchup that might surprise some people, just kind of based on the rankings? I don't know if you have those in front of you, the ECR there. But what might be a surprising name or two that you would want to start over McNichols in this matchup?
Yeah, so real quick, I just want to throw out there a quick trivia question for you on the Titans backfield here. Which of these guys scored the most touchdowns last year? Zeke Elliott, Leonard Fournette, David Johnson, or Adrian Peterson?
I could tell you Elliott and Fournette had very bad seasons. And I don't think David Johnson miss a couple games? Was it Peterson?
It was Peterson, yeah. I just had to. He had 7 touchdowns last year for the Lions. I
That's
just
crazy,
thought that was
man.
pretty amazing when I was firing that out there.
He did, though. He vultured. I can remember on countless occasions vulturing away from DeAndre Swift, and everyone was up in arms. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me when I think of what those names did last year.
Yeah, so I still think he's got some juice in his legs. He's kind of a horse out there. So I think he's the back to own there. You had asked about guys I would start over McNichols this week.
Mm-hmm.
I like Boston Scott.
Good one. Yep.
I'd go both the Denver running backs. Probably James Conner.
Okay.
Daryl Williams. Kind of the point where I see McNichols coming in to play would be, I would actually start A.J. Dillon over McNichols as well.
Okay. So that's an interesting name there for sure. I agree. I think with all of those, James Conner is the one I'm, for some reason, really hesitant on. I think the 49ers are going to get some revenge on Arizona this week. Still not buying into that Cardinals team being as good as, they appeared to be, getting off to that 7-0 start. But, Conner continues to find the end zone like twice a week, it seems like. So I don't know that McNichols is going to have quite that upside this week. What is this Tennessee offense going to look like here? First game without Derrick Henry. It's kind of an unknown for all of us, and they're going up against a difficult defensive matchup to boot. So I agree with all of those names there. I think that you listed off. Also in the sit section of the running back column this week, you've got Devin Singletary of the Buffalo Bills going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I'm just taking a look here quick because I am a little curious. So the Jags kind of middle in the pack defensively in terms of fantasy points allowed to the running back position. What do we got against? So they are actually not terrible defensively against the run. They're dead last, adjusted against the pass. Not terrible defensively against the run. 14th in adjusted efficiency. So is it a Jaguars thing, or is this more because we have someone else in that backfield there, along with Devin Singletary, in as far as the Bills are concerned? Curious to know, or is it some of both for you?
Yeah, the Jaguars don't really strike fear into anyone as far as their run defense. It's more he's the third running back there. It's Zach Moss, it's Josh Allen, and then it's Devin Singletary. He only had 8 touches last week. As a flex, if you got to throw him out there, but as an RB2, I'm looking right around that 24 mark. And he's not making that cut. I don't see how he does this week. Actually, he has not even hit double digits in fantasy points since week 2. And
Wow.
so, and yeah, you can't trust him as an RB2 this week, even in a great matchup. Now, I mean, if they blow the doors off the Jaguars, which is a real possibility and are up big late, I mean, garbage time, counts as much as anything, but I would lean in other directions. And actually, what our discussion about McNichols, I would actually take McNichols over Singletary. I think that might be where I would put the breaking point for where I would put McNichols.
I think I would have to agree with you on that. I'm just not convinced that there are enough touches to go around. This Bills offense is loaded. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders is like a top 25, top 30 wide receiver this season, and he didn't have a catch last week. So that just tells you the amount of weapons they have. And of course, they did win comfortably in the end, even managed to somehow cover that spread against the Dolphins, which was quite crazy. So yeah, Singletary is the odd man out there. It sucks because I think going back a couple of years ago, I was one of those people who really liked him as a dynasty guy to get your hands on and see where this goes. I don't know that he necessarily did anything to fall out of favor in Buffalo. It's just they draft Zach Moss, and Josh Allen does his thing running the ball there as well. So the matchup on paper looks great when it's the Jaguars, but coach not seeing enough touches there to go around for Devin Singletary, and I would be inclined to agree. I think even in garbage time, if Titans Rams got to that point, McNichols is your better bet to rack up garbage time fantasy points, I would say, as a receiver. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
Yeah. All right. So good stuff there as we knock out running back sits to kick things off. Let's jump over to the starts here in the article. And just a reminder, if you do have any week 9 start sit questions, just fire them away in the chat. We'll be here and we will answer them. They're our priority. We'll go through the articles when we don't have questions, but we'll answer questions the entire rest of the show if you've got them for us. So feel free to ask away. Coach, in the article, a couple interesting names popping up as starts at running back this week. First one, Boston Scott with the Eagles going up against the Chargers, who, for all of the LA defensive accolades, Brandon Staley improving that defense. Definitely, I would say they've been more consistent overall from a year ago. But boy, they are not a good run defense. Dead last in adjusted efficiency against the run on the season, and they are allowing the 5th most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. Damian Harris ran it right down their throats last week, and when he wasn't doing it, even Ramondre Stevenson and Brandon Bolden were coming in and subbing in and getting plenty of yards on their carries as well. Talk to me about why you think Boston Scott can do the same thing. I know that Eagles backfield didn't necessarily go the way a lot of people thought last week. Kenneth Gainwell was the hot name on waivers, but it went the way a lot of Flurry Sports people thought. So that was good to see.
Yeah. Gainwell really is the darling. He's the rookie. He's the kind of the buzz. Boston Scott isn't sexy name. It's a guy who's been around the league, and but the guys that have been around the league are the guys that know how to pass block, and are the guys that won't get the quarterback hurt, and will be out there and understand what they're needing to do on each play. And with Boston Scott, it's just kind of looking at the workload, looking at the matchup. The Chargers, as you mentioned, their defense against the run is terrible. And if you look at the game log from last week, it looks like it was split three ways for the running backs there, but it really wasn't. It was Boston Scott was the lead back. Jordan Howard was working in. And then Kenneth Gainwell really didn't get many carries until garbage time when they already salted away the Lions there. So I expect more of the same for Boston Scott this week. And actually, this might be a Gainwell type of game. I can see this game being where they're going to have to throw in the fourth quarter to make up points against the Chargers. So, but I think this is Boston Scott at least early, as they're going to try and keep the Chargers offense off the field a little bit, play some ball control. So that's what I see. I see Scott having another RB2 type performance here.
Yeah, I agree with you. The only thing I guess I would counter a little bit is Boston Scott can catch passes. We've seen him do that before for the Eagles when they've had guys go down. He was a big contributor for them getting to the playoffs there a few years ago, back when Wentz was still around. So I don't know that them trailing necessarily guarantees Gainwell is going to be, the guy in there, but I really like how you point to the box score last week. And, box score analysis, it just doesn't work. You actually have to know what happened in these games. And Gainwell had, I want to say, one, maybe two touches before the fourth quarter of that blowout win, and then they just gave him all of the work. So very important to note that there. It looks like it was a three-man split. It really was not. I could see Jordan Howard falling in the end zone here again this week, honestly, with how bad the Chargers defense has been against the run. That would not surprise me either. The other name you have here in the column for running backs this week is Devonte Booker, New York Giants running back, going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I feel like a lot of people are like, wait a minute, wasn't Saquon Barkley supposed to come back? Like, he almost came back for Monday night, and then he was supposed to come back this week. Well, doesn't look good, ankle injury or not. It might be for other reasons now, but whether he plays or not, I think the Giants running back position is one to look at in this matchup against the Raiders. And you agree, obviously, with Booker featured in the column as a start. So talk to me a little bit more about him.
Yeah. So this actually, it's Saquon Barkley has COVID now. It looks like this week actually is pretty. There's a lot of COVID cases in the NFL this week. I would say it's probably, since the pandemic started, the single biggest impactful week for as far as big names out with COVID.
Is it really?
I just looking around the league, you got three Giants. You got Aaron Rodgers, of course, with his immunization, not vaccination, and you've got multiple others that are out here. And maybe I'm just a little biased here since I am a cheesehead, but it's kind of it's one of those deals where it seems like there's a lot of players that are affected this week. I think Noah Fant. I saw that.
Yeah.
But Barkley was supposed to be back this week. They have a bye coming up next week. Now he's got COVID. Ankle didn't sound like it was really ready to go anyway, possibly. So, this is another week. Devonte Booker's gotten the full workload whenever Barkley has missed. Another nice matchup here. The Raiders are giving up 25.8 fantasy points a game to running backs. So, yeah, as long as Barkley's out, Booker looks like a locked-in RB2 for another week here. So he kind of went under the radar for the free agency a few weeks back there when he it seemed like there's a couple other guys that were kind of above him for free agent pickups, but he's had a nice solid 5-week run here of being a feature back there for the Giants. And so it's, he's had pretty decent returns over that time, and I'd look for another week of it here.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Jason Garrett's offense is, very much early 2000s, maybe even before that. Like it's not pretty in today's NFL, but it does benefit running backs, regardless of who's back there. From a fantasy standpoint, they're going to get touches, they're going to get work, they're going to get red zone work. And I think Devonte Booker has a stable floor. He's proven that. And he is really playing the Saquon Barkley role. Like I know Elijah Penny gets in there and gets a few touches here and there, but he's not a threat to Booker's dominant workload by any means, so long as Barkley is out. And it does indeed look like he will miss yet another game this week. Do you have a couple of things in the chat here? James Nelson, hello. I'm going to take your second question first, just because it's kind of like what we've already just been talking about. Do you think Boston Scott will make double-digit PPR points again this week? No PPR, I'm sorry. So it is a standard league. Will Boston Scott score double-digit fantasy points? What do you think, Coach?
So, will he score a touchdown? I think he's got a pretty solid shot at scoring a touchdown. And, that's 6 right there. I think you're probably going to be looking at 40, 50 or more rushing yards. Tack on another, 10, 20 through the air. I think he's got a pretty good shot at it. I would say that 10 standard points would be I think that'd be a pretty safe estimation.
Yeah, I think he can come in right around there. I think it boils down to whether or not he finds the end zone.
I agree.
Now, the Eagles are probably going to have to pass more this week than they did last week, just given the opponent and probably how this game is going to play out a little bit. But, at the same time, I don't know that Scott can crack double digits without scoring a touchdown. But like we already talked about, Chargers defense, run defense is not good. So he and Jordan Howard both could very well find the end zone again. Will they both find it twice again? Probably not. But I could see both of them scoring a touchdown for the second straight week here for sure. James's other question here, will Odell Beckham go to the Saints or the Raiders? That is one of today's news stories, Coach, is that the Browns are looking like they're going to split with Odell Beckham Jr. I don't know if you heard about the drama of his dad firing shots at Baker Mayfield on social media. And, I mean, this seems to continue regardless of where Odell is and how he's playing. I mean, does anyone even want this guy at this point? Like, can he get over the injuries and still contribute? What do you think of those two teams, though? Those are two, I know, popular spots people are throwing around. Obviously, Michael Thomas is not going to be back this year. The Saints just lost for the Saints. The Raiders just lost Henry Ruggs this week. So they do need a game-changing receiver. Now, is Beckham still that game-changing receiver? I don't know. But of these two, where do you think he winds up? Or do you have him going somewhere else?
I'll tell you what, he looks exactly like what the Raiders are looking for. I can't think of a better fit for the Raiders, to be honest. You look at just the Henry Ruggs draft pick last year. You got CeeDee Lamb, you got Jerry Judy, you got Jefferson. And I suppose at that point, Ruggs probably was. But I had CeeDee Lamb, I had Jerry Judy both above Ruggs. I thought Ruggs was a reach. Obviously, there's apparently some character issues too. I can't imagine he probably has something in his past to indicate that he's a bit of a loose cannon, or to be driving around 150 40 miles an hour with a loaded gun. So to me, Odell Beckham seems like the perfect fit for the Raiders. It's right up their alley. They like the guys that have a rap sheet. So I think that'd be where my money would be on the two teams there.
Yeah, I'd be behind that. It seems to fit their the trend of their season. I'll give them credit. They were quick to move on from Ruggs, and supposedly he's got a really good attorney and may actually, come back and play this season, depending on how things go. Like this guy's, I can't remember the other players he's represented before, but I know he's gotten some settlements in cases where it really didn't look like it should have been settled that easy. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But yeah, 156 miles an hour. That's I think that's faster than I've ever gone. So that's saying something right there. And I like to drive fast. I'm a NASCAR guy. So yeah, crazy stuff. James says Odell will get a lot more fan love in New Orleans. It is a good point. The Saints are in a tough spot here too, though, because they just lost Winston. So what is that offense going to look like going forward? I honestly see, I think, it flowing through both Kamara and the newly acquired Mark Ingram. I think we could be looking at a little bit of a blast from the past there, where it's a two-man backfield in New Orleans, and both Kamara and Ingram are featured and getting high volume, high usage on a regular basis. That would not surprise me at all. So I don't know what to make of that situation either. And of course, Zach the other night said that he thinks Drew Brees will be back in a Saints uniform, or Phillip Rivers, which I couldn't picture Phillip Rivers like wearing the black and gold with the Saints. So I don't know. I kind of want to see that just so I actually get the image of how it would look in real life. But time will tell, I guess, with all of these moves. A lot of moving parts, injuries, the virus this week, like Coach said. Obviously, we got guys driving around with guns and intoxicated. So it's been a crazy week around the NFL, and a lot of moving parts still to come, I would say, for sure, even though the trade deadline did pass this week. Coach, I'm going to jump into your wide receiver start sit article here as we keep going. And again, if you have any start sit fantasy questions of your own, dump them in the chat. We'll answer any and all that we get here between now and when we're done. Coach has two guys that I love as starts in his receiver article this week. So I am super hyped to hear what he has to say about them as well. Brandon Cooks being the big one with the Texans, going up against the Miami Dolphins, who he also likes Jalen Waddle as a start against Brandon Cooks' Houston Texans defensive teammates. So talk to me a little bit more about this matchup, how you see it going, and why you like both of these receivers so much in fantasy this week.
Yeah, so the key number for both guys is 8.8. That's the number of targets they're both seeing per game, which is a nice figure. You look at Brandon Cooks, he's getting right around 28% target share for Houston. And you look at Waddle, and with Tua in there, he's right around 27% target share there. So they've kind of reestablished their connection from Alabama there. I think they're both locked in wide receiver twos this week. The matchup is nice for both of them. The Dolphins are giving up 43 fantasy points a game to opposing wide receivers, while the Texans are giving up 37. I like Devontae Parker as well. This week, I think you can start all those guys. I'm not sure what the over-under is on this game. I don't think it was very high, but there's a lot of pieces of the passing game to like here for the Dolphins. The Texans, it's just everything kind of funnels through Cooks, and he's their bell cow of their passing game, I guess. So.
Yeah, that he is, and the passing game should be a lot better. The Texans were averaging 6.6 yards per play offensively through the first game and a half with Tyrod Taylor under center. David Culley said that Taylor will definitely be back and starting this week. So that makes me almost even look at Danny Amendola in a deeper league, and I hate that I just said that, but I'm going to need to find a wide receiver 3 this week because I got guys on bye, and it's a 16-teamer, and he's one of the guys sitting there staring at me. I'm just going to leave that alone. I love Brandon Cooks, though, and like you said, Jalen Waddle is getting peppered with targets on a weekly basis. Now, he may only catch 6 of 12 for 29 yards, but in PPR, you're getting a decent point total out of that if he's catching 6 passes at 8.9 points. So the yardage hasn't necessarily been there. I think it is capable of being there this week in a game that, honestly, I could see this one turning into a shootout, just given how bad both of those defenses have been. I could also see it being ugly and going the other way. So time will tell on that. But yeah, I love Jalen Waddle. The targets are there for sure. I'm down on Devontae Parker. I kind of think last week was a bit of a mirage. He's a guy I'm looking to sell off of that. Speaking of pulling teeth in the buy low, sell high article, he's the one that I threw in there, even though the ownership's not extremely high. It's just, I don't know that. I don't know. Would you agree with that? Do you see him continuing that? Like, for me, aside from Gesicki, I want Waddle. Like, he's the only other Dolphin I'm confident in, I guess. And I know Parker's done some good things when he's been on the field and healthy, but I just don't know if he's able to sustain it. And I think last week was kind of a mirage.
Well, so I think it comes down to Tua, and do you think Tua is able to sustain 3 productive receivers? And Waddle's going to get his. He's getting a nice chunk of targets. Gesicki's going to get his, and so is Devontae Parker. Is Tua able to kind of sustain that? I'm looking at Devontae's game log, and he's had no less than 7 targets in every game he's played. Now, injuries have always been a concern with him, and he's likely to miss time the rest of the season, as likely as anyone else, I suppose. But seems like he's not the most durable, which I hate using that because, it's football. Guys are going to get hurt. But his past injury history would indicate that. But, if he's getting 7 plus targets from Tua, I'm a believer in Tua. I think he's going to actually kind of teasing the quarterback portion of the article. I have him as a start this week, and I think he's got a little chip on his shoulder this week against Houston. He might look to embarrass them a little bit after kind of some of that trade talk. I can see that's pretty motivating for a guy who's trying to kind of make it his team. So, I like Parker this week. I view him as a wide receiver 3, but not a wide receiver 3-4-ish guy the rest of the way. I'd play him in positive matchups. I don't know if I would in tougher matchups at this point yet.
Yeah, I can get behind that. So, like, this week, I could see him being a guy you don't mind throwing in at wide receiver 3 flex. Maybe I'm just biased against him. I don't know, after being somewhat let down by him in the early years. But, yeah, tough matchups. I just don't know if I'm quite as high on Tua yet as you are. Now, I have seen some good things to kind of suggest that it's going in the right direction there offensively for the Dolphins. I'm going to be curious to see how the next few weeks go because it really can't get any worse than a 7-game losing streak. So, they do have some things to turn around. Cautiously optimistic, though, especially with how the first half went last week against the Bills. They should have gone into the locker room up 10-3, if not for I don't know what the pre-snap movement was that generated that fumble and let the Bills get out of there with a tie game like it did. But yeah, so we'll see how this week goes for the Dolphins. Much easier matchup, obviously, against Houston. Isaac Lopez, aka Big Mac, is in the chat. Hello. Michael Carter is playing for your Jets. Wait, wrong side. Jets tonight against the Indianapolis Colts. Michael Carter's also a Braves fan too, so I kind of fell in love with our rookie running back this week. Isaac wants to know, would you start him or Daryl Williams in his flex spot? Daryl Williams with the Chiefs going up against the Aaron Rodgers-less Packers. And I could honestly see that maybe hindering his value a little bit as the kind of quote-unquote pass-catching back there. We saw Derek Gore come in and do well as the more between-the-tackles runner last week. What do you think of this, Coach?
For me, it's Carter.
Okay.
I've seen enough out of Carter the last couple of weeks. I'm putting him as an RB2 rest of the way. With that floor as far as targets for what he's getting, he had 9 targets 2 weeks ago, 14 targets last week. I mean, you're looking at a guy who's going to get usage similar. I mean, that's similar to like a Kamara style usage when he's split the backfield there. I think for me, I'm going to ride with Carter. Daryl Williams kind of saw splitting some work last week. I do see this possibly being a game the Chiefs could get things right against the Packers without Rodgers. And I do think it could be one where they're looking to run it away in the second half. But let's be honest. I mean, does Andy Reid ever really try and just run out the clock? I think well, for me, it's Carter, and I don't even think it's particularly close.
I would have to go with Carter there as well. While I don't know that he's going to have much rushing upside tonight, going up against the number 1 defense adjusted against the run. The past 2 weeks, given that I feel like I've watched way too much Jets football the past 2 weeks, considering that they got blown out in one of those games, they've proven to me that Michael Carter has a pretty stable PPR floor. So assuming you're in a PPR league, I don't mind going with that at all, especially with Mike White under center. Both Carter and Ty Johnson have been, White's go-to targets in the passing game, along with Jamison Crowder last week. Corey Davis is out again this week. Coach, you and I were talking about this before the show started because you're starting Ty Johnson in a deeper dynasty where you just need somebody to throw in there. And I don't hate that at all. I know all the buzz has been around Michael Carter. Ty Johnson hasn't been on the field as much, but he's been super efficient when he has been. And I don't really know how you don't start Carter after he was RB1 last week. Kind of goes to, something that you say a lot, Coach, where if you start Daryl Williams and Michael Carter goes off tonight, you're kicking yourself. And if you start Michael Carter and it doesn't really pan out and Daryl Williams winds up the better back, it's like, okay, before last week when Derek Gore was in there and it was a split, I think this is a lot closer argument for me. But also the gap has been widening in snap count between Carter and Johnson here the past few weeks, even though Johnson has continued to produce. But with Mike White in there and Corey Davis out, and especially given the Colts' defensive strengths and weaknesses, it has to be going with Carter there. I think he does have a nice PPR floor. Mr. Grapefruit, did we ever buy a signed jersey? Coach, do you own any signed jerseys? Because I don't.
I do not. I have a couple mini helmets that are signed. I have one by a Brett Favre, and I have one that's a Elvin Kamara signed mini helmet, but do not have a signed jersey in the collection. I think if you have a signed jersey, you have to mount it on the wall, and so you would need to it's not something you could hang in a closet.
Right.
Display it prominently.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I don't know if it'd be something I'd be rushing to wear either. I feel like I would just ruin it. But no, this is a Darrelle Revis jersey, and unfortunately, it is not signed. Even though Revis is like my favorite player ever. I do have autographed stuff. It's been a while though, because the Jets used to have their training camp up by me in Cortland during the Rex Ryan days, and that is no more. They're practicing again, doing training camp back down in southern New York State, down closer to the stadium. So, fortunately, haven't gotten any Jets autographs in a while. I did get a Patrick Peterson autograph, though, when I was out in Phoenix. That was, 4 years ago? Boy, time flies. All right. Thank you for those questions. Continue dropping them in the chat, whether it's signed jerseys or start sit. We'll take it all here. We're here for it. I'm kind of jealous of Coach's Alvin Kamara autograph. What'd you say? Was helmet?
Yeah, it's one of the mini helmets. They're like the that big,
Right.
I did actually when I was growing up, the Kansas City Chiefs used to do their training camp pretty close to my hometown, and so I did actually meet Marcus Allen back in the day, and he signed a football for me, and that was pretty cool as a teenager. Actually, I was kind of a tween when I got a chance to meet him, and I met Joe Montana too. I wasn't able to get an autograph from Broadway Joe though.
Yeah, Marcus Allen, that's cool though too.
Mm-hmm.
I am a bit jealous. I will say that. I got Mark Sanchez back when he was a rookie. I got him before he ever played a snap. Met him. Also, Jay Feely was really nice at Jets camp. But, now, of course, he's in the broadcast booth. I guess it's always the kickers, right? That you would expect to chum it up. They don't really work too hard out on the practice field. Let's get back into the receiver article here. What do we got for sits this week, Coach? Jaguars receivers across the board, it looks like, against the Buffalo Bills. I think that matchup kind of speaks for itself in a lot of ways. But also, the one thing I'll throw out before I give you the floor here is it's kind of tough to know who Trevor Lawrence is going to target on a weekly basis. It's kind of been spread around. Guys haven't been consistent. One week it'll be Marvin Jones. Jamal Agnew's been getting targets. Obviously, tight end Dan Arnold factoring in there. But I don't know how much you can trust any of those guys against Buffalo. I threw Dan Arnold in the tight end streamers article, but that's literally because it's a streamers article. And your goal, I think, is a little bit less than say a Laviska Shenault or a Marvin Jones. Talk to me a little bit more about the Jags receivers, and then it looks like we have another defense question. So that'll be fun once we get through this one.
Yeah. So for me, it's just a matter of they're playing the Bills, and the Bills defense has been tops against wide receivers as far as, well, they've only given up 26 fantasy points a game. That's second fewest in the league, but they've only allowed 2 wide receiver touchdowns. Both Jones and Shenault were not targeted. 5 catches last week for Jones, 2 for Shenault. Can't trust that. You can't trust the matchup. If James Robinson misses, which it looks like he might, I really don't want anything to do with the Jaguars offense this week. I think this game is going to get pretty ugly. So that's why I have both those guys as sits. And I'm not even, Carlos Hyde as a plug and play. I don't even know if I'm high on that. He'd be another guy that I would have McNichols over. If you're looking for that plug and play RB2.
Yeah, I think I agree with you too. It's tough to trust any of them. And I mean, what is Urban Meyer doing? Kicking an extra point when you could have cut it to a 2-score game with a 2-point conversion. It's a mess in Jacksonville. Growing pains for sure. Hopefully Urban Meyer won't be around too much longer for Trevor Lawrence's sake and all of Duval County. Ray Gamer needs help. Colts defense versus the Jets on Thursday Night Football, or the Cowboys defense this weekend against the Broncos. I've got to go with the Cowboys there personally. I picked them up to stream in a league this week. Cowboys not too bad in terms of defensive numbers. Dan Quinn has done a great job of turning that around. And, Mike White's a wild card. A week ago, I probably would have said, okay, Colts are a very attractive streamer against a backup quarterback who's never started an NFL game. Now, maybe not so much. We'll have to see. I kind of like to be hands-off with Thursday Night Football, like I've said on here before. I don't know that it gets much better than facing Teddy Bridgewater. I don't expect the Broncos offense to do a whole lot, even if he's not throwing interceptions. I think from a points and yardage standpoint, Cowboys will do you just fine. Do you agree or disagree?
Boy, this is a tough call. I'm just kind of breaking down some of the numbers here. I think I'm actually gonna go with the Colts on this one. I do think that they probably have more upside than the Cowboys. I don't think, I think they'll get a turnover out of Mike White, maybe two. I don't think he's going to put up 400 yards again this week. Who knows? I mean, he might be the real deal. The Jets may have found their quarterback.
You never know.
His last name starts with a W, but it's not the one they thought. I actually do think, the Cowboys have been playing really well, but the Colts defense has been putting up points. They've actually outscored the Cowboys on the year here. So I think I'm going to go with the Colts on this one.
Okay. All right. I can see the argument both ways. What's that?
I know that probably doesn't help make up your decision. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, from a conservative standpoint, I think the edge goes to the Colts just because, is Teddy Bridgewater going to turn it over? But the Broncos offense is just awful with him under center. So I think they're going to need to make some things happen considering what Dallas is going to be throwing at them with their own offense. Denver's going to need to push in the second half. I expect them to be trailing. You got 10-point spreads in both games, so kind of similar situations there. I would see Mike White being more prone to mistakes, but I mean, maybe I'm biased against the Jets too. I don't know. Probably shouldn't listen to me when the Jets are involved. Speaking of the Jets being involved, James Martin, another question here involving tonight's game. Would we start Jacoby Myers, Kadarius Toney, or Jamison Crowder? That one is really, really tough for me. And I honestly might say Crowder just because I know the Jets are not going to be able to run the ball tonight. But will Mike White have a second act? That's a tough call. Corey Davis is going to be out, so that helps Crowder. I think he had 8 catches last week. He was heavily involved. 8 receptions on 9 targets. So he's going to be my initial lean here, and I'll let you go too, Coach. I like Jacoby Myers, but the Patriots, it's tough to bank on any receiver on a weekly basis. 1 week it'll be Myers, the next week it'll be Bourne, and then it'll be Nelson Aguilar last week leading the team in yards. I think PPR-wise, Myers has the safest floor of that group, but we know New England wants to run the ball, and against the Panthers, that's exactly the approach I expect them to take. Carolina a lot better adjusted defensively against the pass than the run, and Toney's a bit of a wild card there. I just don't know if it's a good matchup on paper against the Raiders. I'm gonna do some more digging on him. What do you think of this one?
So I'm going to go with my floor and ceiling, like I like to do. I think I agree with you. I think Crowder is the safest play of all of these. I think he's got it's going to be a game where I can see Myers. I can see New England not having to pass as much against Carolina. I think Crowder is going to be in a position where the Jets are going to be behind. So I do think Crowder's got a safe floor. He'll probably get 8 catches, 70, 80 yards. Maybe a touchdown. Toney's probably the swing for the fences guy if you're a big underdog.
Agreed.
Throwing Toney in there because he could blow up. I think he's the most apt to. So if I were playing DFS lineup, I'm playing a tournament. Toney would be my play. If I'm playing a cash game, I'm putting in Jamison.
I like it. I'm right there with you. I lean Jamison, I think, in terms of confidence. But based on matchup, I could see Toney really, exploding there because it doesn't look like Galladay's going to be back. Obviously, Barkley's not going to be there. And Toney definitely has the talent to explode any given week. The guy I am staying away from there is Jacoby Myers, as much as I like him, though. I just don't think New England's going to have to throw it all that much this week to be successful. And when they do, it's hard to trust him to get peppered with targets in a similar light to what I think Crowder is going to deal with tonight, just knowing Corey Davis is out. I think it's going to be him and the running backs as White's primary weapons in the passing game. All right, good stuff. What else do we got here? Because we can finish up the wide receiver start sit column real quick. What time are we at? It looks like 8:26 Eastern. So if you guys have any other questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. Coach and I will probably hang out here for another, 5-10 minutes. That work for you? And
Works for me.
sure. So anything else for week 9? Obviously, TNF has kicked off. Go Jets. But if you have anything for this Sunday and or Monday, I don't know how much offense we're going to be seeing in Bears Steelers on Monday night, but whatever you got for us, week 9 starts it. Drop them in the chat, and we will hang out here for a little bit longer to answer those for you. Coach has got Davonte Smith also as a sit in his wide receiver column this week over on flurrysports.org. Coach, you like Boston Scott with the Eagles as a start at running back. Talk to us about why we are sour on Devonte Smith at wide receiver. I think the rookie started out really strong this year, but it's been a little bit rougher, tougher sledding for him here in recent weeks.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I actually did touch on that in the article too, that I usually actually have 2 Eagles as starts this week and 1 as a sit, and it's pretty rare that I will do that. But the matchup's terrible against the Chargers, who have been the top defense against opposing wide receivers. Only 26 fantasy points. That's actually even just a tick above the Bills as far as how they're doing. Last week, Devonte Smith was barely targeted. I think he had 3 targets. Now, granted, he wasn't really needed. The Eagles pretty much had that one from the opening kickoff there, but he's only had 8 catches over the last 3 weeks. With the matchup and with his lack of usage, Jalen Hurts can get it done many ways. I still think Jalen Hurts is a sit. I like him this week. I'm not putting Devonte Smith in lineup so this week as a wide receiver 2. Now, if you need to throw him in there as a wide receiver 3 or flex, I mean, he can always catch that touchdown, but that's what you're banking on. You're hoping he hits that big play because I think you're going to see Jalen Hurts using his legs, and I think you're going to see more of Dallas Goedert. And so for me, it's Devonte Smith is tough to trust this week.
Jalen Hurts attempted all of 14 passes last week against Detroit. Now, I know they got out to the big lead early, didn't have to throw it, but still, even in wins, most quarterbacks are attempting 20 passes, I would say, at least, right? That's pretty safe number, I would say. 14 for Hurts. Most of those went to Dallas Goedert, like you said. The targets have fallen off here for Smith. No more than 5 each of the last 3 games. After he had more than that in 3 of the first 5. I'm looking at receptions. I'm sorry. There we go with targets. Yeah, well, he's still been under 5 in 2 of the last 3. And the first 5 games of the season, he had 6 or more in terms of targets for Devonte Smith. So kind of just echoing some of your thoughts there. I would have to agree with you. I would add also the Chargers adjusted defensively are 4th against the pass. We talked about how terrible they are against the run, dead last. So going along with the fewest fantasy points allowed to the position, all the numbers point towards the Eagles should be able to do what they want to do this week, and that is run the football, whether it's Jalen Hurts, Boston Scott, or Jordan Howard.
Yeah.
Teasing the quarterback start sit article, you mentioned Jalen Hurts. You have him in there. You also have Tua Tagovailoa. We talked about him a little bit already in that Texans-Dolphins matchup when we talked about a couple of your wide receiver starts. Anything else you wanted to add on Tua? Or did you want to I'll let you pick one of the 2 quarterback sits in the column that you want to talk about here on the show, and we'll save the others for those who head on over to flurrysports.org and check out your writing work.
Yeah, let's go off Tua again. I feel like I've featured Jalen Hurts in here a few times this year. I think initially early on in the season, Both these two are kind of in similar boats. They're both, I think, very solid fantasy quarterbacks, but the jury's still out on whether or not they're actually going to be, you know, legit NFL quarterbacks. As far as actually, I think that period is they're still under review, right?
Yeah.
And but Tua's arrived as far as fantasy points a game. He's been the QB6 since week 6 since he got back. And the Texans are not a tough defense this week. I mentioned before, I think he's got a little incentive to kind of stick it to him, and show that he was the right quarterback, and the Dolphins were right in not making the trade. So I think he's going to be highly motivated this week, and I'm probably higher on Tua than most for the rest of the way, but I think we've gone on about this last year too with Jalen Hurts, how you get these quarterbacks that can add that with their legs and have that element of adding that rushing, and that just boosts their floor. And so for me, Tua's got that, and so I think he's I think he's going to be a QB1 more weeks than not the rest of the way.
Yeah, I agree on the fantasy standpoint. I'm not quite sold on Tagovailoa as an NFL quarterback just yet. However, I think with better offensive line play, it's quite possible. I mean, that Miami offensive line is one of the worst in football, let's be honest here. So he's not working with a whole lot in front of him in terms of pass pro. So I think it is possible, though. We're seeing him put up fantasy points each week. Like you said, we're seeing him put up some decent numbers. I thought last week he did very well against the Bills, all things considered. Exceeded my expectations there. And again, goes back to this Texans-Dolphins game. Both you and I think, are thinking along the lines that there could be a lot of points scored here with Tyrod coming back for Houston as well. So get into a little bit of a shootout, and that is always good for fantasy football purposes. Let's see here. Mr. Grapefruit back in the chat. Another off-kilter question, but I like it. Scariest movie that you have seen, Coach? Is there one that stands out?
Scariest movie, huh? I'll go with the movie that stuck with me a while after it. Pretty disturbing movie. Hereditary. That one, I still, sometimes I watch these scary movies, usually around Halloween. It's like to throw on the fireplace and watch a nice scary movie there. And a lot of them, they kind of mush together, and I can't remember if I've seen them or not, or the names of them, or they all kind of run together. It's, the kid that draws the circles on a piece of paper, and someone scary like creeps under the door. But Hereditary stuck with me. That was a pretty disturbing movie, how that all kind of unraveled.
Yeah, yep, I've heard of that one. I don't know if I've seen it, but I had a friend back in college before I transferred back down in Philly, and jump scare movies he didn't faze him at all. But the disturbing type, those were the ones that got him. So I would imagine he had seen that one for sure. I think for me, it's got to be it's got to be Ghostbusters. The marshmallow puff man, like he got me. What can I say? Terrified. Levon L. Carradine has a question here. I think this is a trade question. James Robinson for Tyler Lockett and the Rams defense. Question mark. This is a hard pass for me. Not even close. I know Tyler Lockett looks nice because of what he did last week. We've talked about him ad nauseum on, I can't remember if it was this show necessarily or other ones here in the Flurry Sports Fantasy YouTube show realm, whatever you want to call it. Tyler Lockett's as boom or bust as it gets. I think it was one that you had to miss, Coach, and I argued with Jake about him. So it was on this show. You just weren't here for it. James Robinson, assuming he might have to miss this week, but long haul, definitely holding on to him. If you're desperate and you need to win now, I still don't know if I would do this trade. I would probably explore trying to shop Robinson around for for a little bit better return than that. I don't know. Do you agree here?
Yeah, you can do better than that. I think for Robinson, I agree. Um, when I'm playing daily fantasy, I like the guys that have that volatility that you can throw in there, and they have that huge upside.
Hmm.
But when I'm playing fantasy football, maybe you can do that with a flex. But if you're counting on a guy to start week in, week out, you want a nice, safe floor. Um, and so I've always been a fan of the guys that get me that 6 catches, get me that 80 yards, shot at a touchdown. Um, I like that. I like that consistency over a guy who's going to go out and one week get you 2 for 20, and then the next week get you 4 for 120. So that's just Tyler Lockett. I think 100%. Last year he was volatile all year. As a matter of fact, I think in this article last year I mentioned that at one point in the season he had outproduced like the other 8 or 9 games at that point in 2 games. And the problem is that when you have a guy like that, sure, he'll win you a week, but if you don't start him, um, if you bench him for someone else and you have one of those weeks, you're kicking yourself too. So these players just make you miserable. Stick with James Robinson. I think you can trade him for, um, a guy that you could probably get who's kind of not really a sexy play is like a Deontay Johnson,
Hmm.
and maybe something else with that. He's more of a week in week out. He's going to get you double digit targets, going to get you a nice solid floor. I'd be more apt to pursue something like that than Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Seattle's also on a bye this week, so if you need to win now, don't do that trade anyway because you're swapping a guy who may miss his game, isn't guaranteed to miss it just yet, for a guy who's definitely not playing this week. So definitely see what else you can do. You can do a lot better for James Robinson. In a fantasy football year here where running backs are dropping like flies, uh, Robinson's the guy you want to hang on to unless you're really getting, I would say, anything not much shorter than a king's ransom for me. I really like him as a player, and it's a crapshoot down there in Jacksonville. Aside from him, he has a weekly volume that cannot be touched when he is healthy and on the field there for them. So,
Agreed.
all right, Coach, I'm gonna let you pick one of your quarterback sits again. You got a couple of them in the column. We'll let everyone go over and check out the column, but pick one of those two you want to talk about. I know we talked about the Titans to tease that one a little bit already, but did you want to stick with that game or did you want to go to the other one?
Yeah, let's talk Titans here.
Okay.
This situation is um, you know losing a guy like Derrick Henry is such a blow to the Titans. I think we're going to see Tannehill. We're going to have an increase in usage for him. He's going to have to pass. He won't be putting up some of the pedestrian games he has been. But with that,
100%.
he's going to. I mean, the volume is going to overcome, but his efficiency is going to decrease. It won't be. He won't have the play action. Adrian Peterson. Might strike a little fear in defenses, but certainly not to the level that Derrick Henry does when guys are afraid to tackle him. So for me, then you got this matchup, this whole adjustment. The matchup this week against the Rams. The Rams defense is only given up 16.8 fantasy points to quarterbacks, and now they've just added Von Miller. He's going to be out there. Without having to respect a Derrick Henry play action. I mean, this isn't going to be a game where I want to start anyone from the Titans. Maybe A.J. Brown, although he might get the Jalen Ramsey treatment too. For me, I'm not really looking to play my Titans this week unless I have to. I mean, I'm in a 2 quarterback league and I got Ryan Tannehill out there. I'm not loving it, but there's nothing else out there. So, uh, to me, if you have a legitimate top 15-ish option, I prefer them over Tannehill this week.
I think I agree with you. Well, the volume's going to expand. How how much will Tannehill give up in terms of efficiency? A really solid fantasy quarterback a year ago, and I've kind of been tooting the horn of Hall. What he's been doing so far this year, it's bound to improve at some point because there were those rough games. Obviously, Julio Jones hasn't been in there most weeks. A.J. Brown was in and out of the lineup, and we've seen Tannehill hook up with Brown here a couple times in the past couple weeks. But I think the efficiency is definitely going to suffer. And what does that look like? We don't know what this Titans offense is going to look like without Derrick Henry. So it is a bit of a gamble to, I would say, start him this week against the Rams. And assuming most people aren't playing in 2 QB leagues, you could probably find something, a better option on waivers. Let me just look and see. I think of a creative way to end this week's show. I'm going to look and see what other matchups we got here. Look at the rankings, and we can maybe try and decide. All right. Coach, would you start Ryan Tannehill or Tyrod Taylor?
I think I would go with. Pull up rankings here. I do see. I just pulled up the game. It looks like Nyheim Hines scored a touchdown here for the Colts.
Love it. Over 14.5 receiving yards.
Said Tyrod Taylor or Tannehill.
Yep.
That's a tough call. I think I would probably go with Tannehill.
Okay. Would you do Tannehill or Daniel Jones?
Let's see. That's another tough call there.
They're meant to be tough. I promise.
Yeah. I think I'm. Let's see, I'm just looking to see the. Jones has the Raiders. I think for me, I'd take Jones.
Okay. Tannehill or Teddy Bridgewater?
That's I'm kind of leaning Bridgewater on that one.
Okay. All right.
That's a tough call again. I do think Bridgewater is going to have. He's got Sutton. He's got Judy back now.
You got weapons, that's for sure.
He does.
Even if Fant's out, I like some Alberto. I'm here for that.
Yeah. Yep. So I think I would go Bridgewater in that scenario.
All right. I agree with you on Daniel Jones. Tyrod Taylor is literally a coin flip, and I lean Taylor just because I think I'm biased towards him. Bridgewater, I would put, I think, just below Tannehill, but I could also make the argument, obviously like the weapons you said, and I do think Denver trails in this game. And so, they're not going to be able to run the ball like they were last week against Washington when you're in a close game. I know they want to lean on the running backs, but both can catch passes as well. So that could help Tannehill out a little bit, or Bridgewater, out a little bit there as well. So interesting discussion, interesting debate as always. I need to remember to do more of those coming shows. Just because I like
Yeah,
watching you rack your brain trying to figure out which one you want to do.
yeah, no, those are tough. It's kind of at the running back position. We were doing that with McNichols too, and it's like you kind of find that threshold where you
Right.
where that cutoff point is. Yeah, if Taylor's a tough one. Yeah, I'm literally up in the air. I would start Tannehill over guys like Roethlisberger, Ryan, Mac Jones, Mayfield. But then guys, I would start over Tannehill. I'd say you're looking at like Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, kind of right in that range. But you were giving me some pretty tough scenarios there. So
Yeah, I'm trying to see because we did a couple guys you wanted to sit. Okay, here we go. So I'm gonna throw one more of these little exercises at you, and this time we're gonna do it with a guy you had starting, Jalen Waddle, at wide receiver. Would you start Waddle over? Well, I'll start with his teammate, Devontae Parker.
yes.
Okay, me too. What about Emmanuel Sanders?
I got to go Waddle there.
Okay.
I'm starting to view Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders. I'm kind of with the way that they're kind of ebbing and flowing there. I'm finding it it's a little bit of a Tyler Lockett situation where it's kind of a little too much of a wave for me. I think Waddle's going to be safer, and I do like him better than Parker and like him better than Sanders this week.
Yeah, I would say from a target standpoint, for sure, Waddle is safer over Sanders there. Waddle or T. Higgins?
I think for that one, I would lean. I think I'd lean Waddle again on that one.
Okay. And what about Waddle or Jerry Judy?
That's a tough one. I actually have to make that decision in a league. And that's one that I'm kind of mulling over. I think I still go Waddle.
Okay.
I think there's just enough there with. I think Waddle's the number one in Miami, and I don't really know who is in Denver. It seems like a 1A, 1B. I don't see either one of those guys between Sutton and Judy really getting that monster target game.
Yeah. Well, you got two running backs there who are involved on a weekly basis. Miami, I mean, Gaskin shows up every now and then, but we don't know if he's going to be involved at all. The thing that scares me about the Dolphins is just the whole, they've got two offensive coordinators, and it seems like it's just a broken system all around. But to your point, talking about Jerry Judy specifically, I want to trust him, and I know there's a whole lot of talent there, but so long as Bridgewater's under center, I think the value of all of those guys is capped. And I would even throw Tim Patrick in there as a guy who gets overlooked, but he performs when the ball goes his direction. And I think you have to lump him into the conversation, not necessarily as the Broncos contending for wide receiver 1 status, but he's another mouth to feed. It's tough to trust any of them. They should all, I think, be producing a lot more than they are. Like, to see Sutton bottom out last week with a floor of 6 fantasy points, that was really frustrating. And
yeah, and to tell you the truth, I like Jerry Judy better than Sutton.
I think I do too. I love both of them, And I think both are capable of leading the offense, but not to cut you off, but like I want to see both of them do well, and they just it's tough.
Yeah, and I think Sutton's physical attributes might be a little bit more, off the charts. Whereas I think Judy is just such a great route runner and such a. I actually liked him better than CD Lamb coming out of college. I thought Judy was the better prospect of the two. He had some drops last year, but still, I mean, I think we're going to really see him blow up at some point. And I think he will emerge as the number one at some point. Like he's got more of a timing based where he'll be in a spot. I think Sutton's more of he's the guy that's going to make some of these crazy catches down the field or that can. But I think Judy's going to be more of like the third down. We need this. He's going to be right at the sticks type of guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I could agree with that. Do you think it happens this year? And a follow-up question to that, over or under? Let me pull up their schedule here because it's going to impact this. Let's see. Bye coming up. So that would be week 9, week 10, 11. So the Broncos have a bye week 11. So the first question, do you think we see that Judy explosion this year? And the follow-up is over under week 11 and a half. Denver changes to Drew Lock as starting quarterback. They have the Eagles following the Cowboys this week. Then they have the week 11 bye, week 12 home to the Chargers.
Oof.
Throwing all the tough questions at you.
That Chargers game could be the end of. So I would probably say it'd be after week. Well, coming out of a bye though too, if you're going to make a change, that's the time to do it. But I don't think if I have a young quarterback and I'm trying to put him out there and get his confidence up, I don't think I'm looking to do it against the Chargers right away. There, I think I'd rather give him a game against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay.
The following week.
Good
I
analysis.
would say. I'd say probably more apt, and week 12 might just be the week that Bridgewater just gets, completely,
the reason for making the change. Right?
Exactly. With Judy, I think it's going to come, but the thing is with being a wide receiver and having a wide receiver talent is that you're also dependent on a quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. And so great quarterbacks can make average wide receivers look great. And great wide receivers can look pretty darn average if they don't have a good quarterback throwing them the ball. So for me, I do think he's got a nice little stretch of games there where I think we might see a Judy explosion. Week 13 at Kansas City, week 14 Detroit, week 15 Cincinnati. That might be the stretch there where we start to see Jerry Judy, Cortland Sutton, both of them kind of that's Denver passing's games going to be their pinnacle of their season right there.
I love it. Great stuff. Great commentary. I threw a lot of hard balls at you, fastballs, and I'd say you at least got a base hit on all of them. So still not sure about the which quarterback was it? You had Tannehill over Daniel Jones, right? Did you go Daniel Jones?
Went Daniel Jones over Tannehill.
There's one of the positions I didn't quite agree with, but it's okay. It was
Bridgewater.
Yes, because you went Bridgewater. That was it. So
yeah,
course, we're talking about him, and I'm
yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, that one's pretty close. I think when I look at chess pieces, right, I think Bridgewater has more weapons that he can use against Dallas. And maybe I'm still just not entirely buying the Dallas defense, although they've put it out there for, this season so far. They've showed up every week. But I just see the Titans Rams. It feels like they don't have a lot of chess pieces that are not going to be completely swallowed up by the Rams. I just think if Ramsey's on AJ Brown, if Julio Jones doesn't play, or it feels like, every time he plays, even he's at risk of leaving the game for an extended period. Then you got a backfield scenario that's still kind of being worked out. I don't know what the spread is on that game, but I'd have to think the Rams cover it. I'm just pretty pessimistic rather on the Titans this week.
It's like we're at 7.5 is the Las Vegas consensus.
That damn hook.
Yeah, I'll say this. I would much rather bet Chiefs at -7 than I would Rams -7.5.
Yeah. Every time you get the hook in there, but I think 7, I'd feel pretty confident in.
Yeah, so we'll see how it moves. It opened at 4, and it has obviously gone up, of course, with the Henry injury, but still time before kickoff. This has been a great show. We filled it up, I would say, to the brim. Thank you all of those who asked questions. We really appreciate it. Helps make time fly by around here, and plenty of good discussion as always. All of the fantasy football content is available in written form over at flurrysports.org beyond what we discuss on these shows. Of course, you got streamers, you got coaches, all three start sit, streamers for every position, all kinds of stuff over there. If you're still looking for some additional waiver wire ads, maybe you can find some in that column that came out earlier this week. The boss man, Zach Bruner, has his rankings up. He'll be updating those prior to kickoff, obviously, for the Sunday game. So check back in leading up to the games. Best of luck in Week 9 to all of you. Best of luck to you as well, Coach. Thank you for joining me. It has been a pleasure as always. Did you have anything else for the people tonight?
Well, it looks like the Jets have tied it up here. Mike White with a touchdown pass there. Rewarding the faithful there.
Who caught it?
Let's see here. Just looks like it was Elijah Moore.
Hey!
Yeah.
Ole Miss, baby. Love it.
There it is.
Get Cincinnati in the top 4. What are we doing here? College football playoff committee is a joke.
Cincinnati top 4.
Yeah, I'm not going to start ranting on that. We got to get off. Let's go watch some Thursday Night Football. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Coach. We will talk to you all next week, probably, right? Yeah, I guess be next week. This has been your Week 9 Fantasy Football Start Sit Show presented by Flurry Sports. Have a great night, everyone.